Hey there, everybody, and welcome back again to Fruitful 7. This week's podcast is going to be pretty special. We're actually going to spend a lot of time unpacking 1 Samuel chapter 17. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, 1 Samuel chapter 17 is actually where the story of David versus Goliath is chronicled. And the story is actually pretty dense. And so I want to be patient, and I really want us to take some time to go through the story very diligently, because there are so many good lessons. There's so much good knowledge and wisdom that you can gain from reading this story in 1 Samuel chapter 17. So what we're going to do today is be very careful and diligent to get to as much of this content as we can. And we're actually going to do that over the next couple of episodes. Yes, the story of David versus Goliath is so dense and rich and has so many things to be learned from and to be pulled from it that we're actually going to spend 2 podcast episodes really getting into this material. So what I'm going to do right now is give you guys a bit of a synopsis of what has occurred up until verse 26, and then I'm going to present our point for this portion of the story that I really want us to take away and marinate on as we ponder the story of David versus Goliath. And so in the beginning of 1 Samuel chapter 17, what's happening is that Saul and his men are lining up in battle formation. They're getting ready to go to battle with the Philistines. And in the process of all of this happening, Goliath presents himself for the first time. And so Goliath is, of course, as we know, this very tall, giant figure in the Philistine army and also in Old Testament history. And Goliath is such a huge warrior, such a large person, that he has a shield bearer who actually walks in front of him, has to carry his shield for him so that he can be presented in the proper way that soldiers would have presented themselves in battle at this particular time in human history. And so what Goliath does, of course, as we've usually heard with the story, is he challenges the Israelites, and specifically what he does is ask for one person to come out and duel him. And so the forces of the losing soldier of this duel will serve those of whoever wins. So if Goliath wins the duel, the Israelite armies will be subject to the Philistine armies, and vice versa. If Goliath loses, the Philistine armies will be subject to the Israelite armies. And so when Goliath comes out and makes these assertions and kind of flexes his muscles, if you will, up against the Israelite forces, this discourages King Saul and the Israelite army. But David is actually still in the king's service at this time. He's just splitting time going back and forth between his father's flock and to the battlefront to both serve King Saul directly and to check up on his brothers. And so during the course of David's time in this back and forth, Goliath is actually taunting the Israelites twice a day for 40 days straight. This goes on for a significant period where Goliath taunts, the Israelite army gets discouraged, and they take a break and they start all over again the next day. And so David, as this is going on, also was tasked by his father with taking food supplies to his brothers and to the field commander of the army, and he is to report back to his dad on the status of his brothers. And so one day when David goes to check on his brothers and take them the supplies, David is carrying on conversation with his brothers, asking how they're doing, seeing how things are going with the battle and their war against the Philistines. And while David is talking to his brothers, Goliath decides to show himself and taunt the Israelite army again. And so what happens then is that some exchanges are made, because King Saul has actually decided to present an offer to any of the soldiers who would be willing to go out and fight against Goliath. And he says that if they can defeat him, he'll present things like a tax break for their family. He'll offer one of his daughters, several things that King Saul presents to motivate one of his men to actually go out and duel Goliath. And so after these exchanges happen, David considers what is being said, but he also remembers some truth, some things that he knows about who he is, who the Israelites are in relation to God, and who God is to them. And David utters what is probably one of the most famous lines, not just in his story, in his life, but also in the history of the entire Bible. And that verse is 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 26. So 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 26 says, David spoke to the men who were standing with him. What will be done for the man who kills that Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Just who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And so David, in his heart and in his mind, knew and understood that God is to be revered, God is to be respected, God is to be adored. And to have come up against forces from the Philistines, and specifically Goliath, for them to assert themselves in such a way that they would be bold to come against the armies of the living God and ultimately God himself, David is taken aback by this. And what's beautiful about David's questions and his affront in response to what Goliath and the Philistine army is doing is that David was steadfast. If there's nothing else that we can pick up from the first part of the story, is that David was steadfast and he was bold enough to stand on the fact that he served a God of whom no one could stand against. And I think that's an encouragement for a lot of us, because for many of us, there are things that we combat, there are things that we come against in life. And sometimes the temptation, sometimes the thing that we'll fall into is losing our ability to be steadfast and knowing not only who God is, but being steadfast in the things that we have been called to, being steadfast in who God has created us to be. What I want us to chew on is the fact that we can be encouraged by the steadfastness that David presents, that David exemplified for us when he asked, who is this that comes against the Almighty God? And so that's the first part of the story. Be sure to tune in again in our next podcast as we continue to break down the story of David versus Goliath. God bless you. Thank you for listening and watching. And remember, the kingdom of heaven is at hand.